Well, hi and welcome to Glitch 2600. Who am I? I'm Glitch, aka Brian, whichever way you want to switch around, your friendly host through all things geekery, and you are here for a Glitch Byte. And a Glitch Byte are just those tips and tricks that you can normally consume in under 15 minutes. And if you saw at the beginning, you saw that we're going to be talking about getting better color out of your camera using white balance. You can use white balance in all sorts of creative ways. All it really means is you're going to tell your camera where gray is. A long time ago, Kodak came out with this thing that said to get proper color, proper exposure in your camera, if you were to take a picture like it was a painting and smear it all together, it would make something called 18% gray. And 18% gray basically is just something like that. Actually, it's a little bit darker. So if I were to really show you 18% gray, it's more like that color right there. That's an 18% gray card. Kodak sold it for a long time, and they came in a bigger, way bigger version. But nowadays we have these little small cards. But 18% gray is how it gets its exposure, which is why if you just go in auto settings and try to photograph the snow, it normally turns out gray. And vice versa, you know, a white wedding dress, if you go for black, it can sometimes make it the wrong color. That's where that comes from because it moves it. But in general scenes, when it's mixed, that's how you get proper exposure. So if you want proper color, it's the same thing. It takes that whole picture, goes through it, and then looks for any color variances from this 18% gray. So what can we do with that? Well, a few different things. Like if you work with video lights, you can set your camera. Like mine, I can vary them between 3600 and 5400 degrees. That's the temperature of light. Whether it's cool, which is that side where it's 36 or all the way up to 5000, just whether it's warm or cool. Mine I have set at 44, which means since I like my stuff to be a little warmer, I tend to change my white balance to be around 4600. Now that means I can just dial it in, but equally I can take a shot of this and tell my camera how to do it. So let's take a quick look and see what that really looks like. So I'm going to go ahead and switch over to my handy dandy other computer, which you're going to see here. We'll cut over. There we go. And you get to see the craft beer kids. So if you look at it now, they're in pretty good focus, but let's look at their color. So if I were to switch my white balance, I'm in auto right now, but if I were to switch that over to daylight, you'll see it change a little bit of color there. Shade, it gets a little warmer. Cloudy, it changes. Tungsten, fluorescent, and then there's the one for flash, and then if I turn it back on here, I can do custom, or I can dial in my degrees. So if I come across the top here, actually we're going to make one menu setting change. So you're going to see me drop off because I'm going to make a menu change that'll make it so you can possibly see this a little bit better. Let's see, maybe. There you go. Let's see if you can see this. There we go. So now you can see the menu systems across the top. So if I wanted to, let's focus that in there. If I go a white balance, sorry for the shaky, you'll notice if I wanted to, I can change that color. That's where I see how I'm making it a little bit warmer. Then if I go the other direction, I can make it cooler. Well, that's where I can get really creative with my photography to get the proper color. If I know my lights are already at 4400, this is technically proper color. We already know that's where it's at. But I could go one step farther and put one of these cards in the scene, like that, and capture that white balance. So now I don't technically need it focused, but I can go into here, white balance, and go over Now, to actually set a white balance on this one, you have to go into your menu and set your white balance inside on a Canon. You got to come down here to custom white balance. On a Sony, you can just click the menu button on the back side and go down to it and choose it. But in this case, see, it wants me to pick a photo. Well, I didn't take a photo. So to do that, I got to go back here, have my camera come back on, take a photo here. So it doesn't have to be perfect. Just has to be mostly filling the center of the frame. In which case, now that I took a photo, I can go back into my menu system, custom white balance, choose that one. So hit center for set. It says, hey, you want to make that your custom white balance? I say yes. And then when I go back to my normal video, right now I'm in the wrong white balance, so I'll just go ahead and say custom. Of course, in this one, generally that's the right white balance. In my eye, this is showing a little bit blue, because I didn't quite fill enough of that frame. So if I really want to do this correct again, I'll go like that, really fill the frame. Go back into that menu, do custom white balance, select. See, it's seeing some of that gray that's on that right-hand side, so hopefully, normally you can zoom it in. Mine's just being a little bit of a pain. So I'm just going to go ahead and set. And now, that should be pretty much true color. Like I said, this one's, it's normally better when you can fill the whole frame and get a little bit better. I also like to use a different card called a Weibel. So same type of thing, but it looks like that. I can do that same scene. So I just grab it. Helps if I actually get it in the light that's showing onto it. Then we'll go back into that menu scene again, just to show you on a Canon. It might be a little off because I got off there, but that's what I get for trying to handhold and do this at the same time. But now when it comes back, see, we have that more true color. I can still come in here and warm it up and do different things that way, but this will get me just that more true to tone color. Like I said, it does better when, right now I have this one backlit a little bit. So because I have that backlit, it's grabbing a little bit of this orange light that I have shining down on it. So I'm getting into a little bit of a mixed color setup. But you get the idea of what you can do there. So with the Sony, you can go on the back and hit your menu and go straight down. Same thing, you'll see where you have your white balance. And it's normally in auto. You can switch that to temperature. That's what I do sometimes, you know, when I have to do quick. I just take a photo to color grade it after. Or you can go in and hit custom. That one's nice because it'll ask you to take a photo right then. The Canon does when you're not in video mode. It's just a little caveat with it. But when you're in video, it's better if you shoot it ahead of time and take that photo and then go in and set it. Just make sure you have your white balance card, this thing, actually pointed towards the light. Like I said, in my case, I was pointing it back towards these practicals that I have that you can kind of see on my hand are kind of orangish, where these front lights are more the right color. And I have my craft beer kids pointed in one direction. So you can kind of see how you can mess with the effect. Now, what can we do creatively with that? Well, you saw where I made everything blue. So if I wanted to give that blue tone where it's more like a cold feeling, I can move to that colder temperature and give the impression that it's cold. So if I was to, even with this camera, in my eCam settings, take my temperature and go, brr, I want to give the impression that it's cold in here. I can do that. Or if I'm like, man, it's a hot summer day, I can kind of give that warm tone and tint. Put it back to my normal here. Maybe. There we go. And set it back to neutral. But I can equally change the color of my lights. So if I wanted to bring up the color tones behind me, let's say I wanted to add more orange or more blue into my background. Well, if I took a gel or a colored piece of cellophane that was more orange and put that on my lights or shifted them to be more orange, then if I color balance the other way, then it will actually give the impression that it's bluer in the background. The easiest way to do that is if I pop into my app for my lights and find it real quick. There it is. And we'll see if we can control this main light. And we're going to make that one really orange, like that. Now to balance it, watch the background behind me. Obviously, I'm really orange right now, so to compensate for that, I have to shift towards blue. And as I do, notice how that changes some of the color variation behind me. Now, I'm not color balancing, I'm using my software, so I can't do quite as much, because it's hard to reach behind. But you can kind of see, look, that's what it was. And you can kind of see it in the Tetris blue down there. As I play it back towards normal, it's just a little less saturated. But even that purple in the background, watch how that gets just a little bit more vibrant as I go towards the other side. So if I want to play it blue, I just shift my lights to more orange. Otherwise, I can take it back to where it normally is, which is right in that aspect. And which gives me a sickly color because I got to go back to my normal. But as you can see, let's move that back to normal. Like I said, there's my 4400 that I normally shoot at, but it shows you what you can do. If I wanted to play up some of the orange in my background, the reds and the others, there's not a ton of color in my background other than these ones that shift. It would be one way for me to do it and balance opposite. If you add any color opposite of the one you want to bring up from the color wheel, so if you bring up a color wheel and go opposite, then a white balance will try to subtract the color that you added by adding more of the other. So, like I said, opposite of orange is blue. So if you want to make something more red, then put a green gel and then compensate for that. Or magenta, you'll get more magenta. So if I were to put a green gel over this and white balance, then it'll bring up magentas because opposite of green is magenta. And you can easily bring that up. If you just do a color wheel, you can bring up your CMYK RGB color wheel and just draw across, and that's how you can always manipulate to bring up more tones if there's maybe a color that you really like in your background. So hopefully you found that interesting. If you do, of course, feel free to support by doing the Buy Me a Coffee. But even better, come on over and check us out on Facebook or subscribe and like and all of that fun stuff on YouTube. You can hover over that little QR code and bring that up. Otherwise, pretty easy. I like to play my cool little graphics to subscribe and like. We'd like to, hit the notification bell if you do so that you'll find out when we go live next. We do a new video every Monday. We do Geek Outs, which are your live Q&A sections. Every 2 weeks, we just did one this last week. And then once a month, we do a happy hour where we geek out on craft beer. So if you enjoyed this, please come back. Please subscribe. If you have questions, just comment. Let us know. And we might cover that in the next Geek Out or the next Glitch Byte. So I hope you had a great time. I had a great time. And we'll catch you in a week. All right. Bye.